Greetings, ladies and managers, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series There Is No Epic Loot Here, Only Puns. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 167. Follow the Blue New. The storm Sea Hagen seemed to howl in rage, then determination. I will not fail the queen, he snarled, slamming his staff into the ground. Torrents of water appeared from the nearby salt streams and sheared through Wyam's elongated arms. Wood had cracked, and she dropped him with a hiss. Delta watched as his seed pulsed, shifting between the kind of seed she saw in Kemi and Estel's group to something much closer to Dio or Quis. She had never noticed that there was a difference other than size, but seeing one flicker between both states, there were obvious differences. The larger seed form looked shaped, more chiseled, as it was some kind of artist had turned an already creepy stone into a more horrifying piece. It looked like it was becoming a rage-filled child's face combined with a rotten fruit motif. Vadelin's seed looked like a lump, pulsing and off-putting, but not outwardly aggressive. Foodie's manner was already picking apart both seeds. Vadelin would be easily purified, but the Sea Hagens, it was resisting. It was too potent for the mana concentration Foodie was putting out. He would have to be weakened, worn down, and exhausted. Delta blinked just once. The seed would be much easier to claim if the Sea Hagen had to traverse many dangerous areas, fighting constantly, strain its mental capacity, and dive deeper into thicker mana. Funny how she thought dungeons had flaws because, well, they were dungeons. It was the little things she learned when teaching others. The Sea Hagen snarled and made a motion to come close, and then Jeb sat on him. There was a sort of noise like a grape being squeezed, and the ominous seed energy deflated like a balloon. "Ingredients!" Jack howled as he moved quickly, running over to scoop the things up before Foodie could consume his fill. Foodie groaned, and his mana limit was overflowing, so Delta casually leaned over and formed a secondary storage for him, a sort of double around his core. It wasn't any harder than making Hero or Black Hole Piggle. "Thank you." Foodie sounded exhausted, and she couldn't blame the kid. For him, this insane battle and powerful foes must be a terrifying new experience. For Delta, it was just a Tuesday. She sensed the mana veins connecting her to the dungeon were growing strained from supporting them like this. If they continued to remain, the lands between Foodie's dungeon and her own would become dead zones. After that, up there would be the oceans with no waves or fish, black dead trees, barren soil that would grow nothing, and generic superstores that drove others out of business would spring up. "We need to go," she told Foodie, as the corpses of the damage from the battle was absorbed. "No, you can stay," the Foodie insisted. Delta smiled and appeared next to his core in a flash. Dungeon Avatar Benefit Number 4, Lazy Teleporting. "I have to go back. If I stay, I'll hurt a lot of people in life," she explained gently, and the salty great core was Foodie pulsed. "I don't care about them. You stay," it said. But Delta gently stroked the top of the orb. The entire thing ebbed with an aluminum geode. "I'll be back," she said solemnly. Are you back now?" Foodie asked, hopefully, only 2 seconds later. "Nice try, kid. This foxy teacher has got to get back to her own house before my partner burns the place down, trying to install ceiling-mounted flamethrowers or saw blades on her door handles," she joked. She knew wouldn't do that. He was too classy. "You be nice to Vadelin. He's going to be your friend until I get back," she insisted, and Foodie looked at the human child with the boss room. "You?" This was going to need a slightly different approach. "Foodie, I need you to keep any sandwalkers alive until I get back. The fishies that we just fought are fair game if they don't want to listen. But other fishies might be useful, so be careful. Let Vadelin go home and the others come back to explore your dungeon. Consider it a quest," she said, with a slightly mystical tone. "Quest?" "Close enough," Delta said, and stood. As she turned, a new message appeared. "Foodie has accepted your quest. Success. Kill no humans or landwalkers unless they attack first. Repel attacking Sea Hagens. Optional. Befriend Vadelin. Optional. Learn what friendship is. Reward. Delta's return." "Nani?" Delta muttered. Due to Subject Alpha and Delta working together, their systems have leaked into one another. Delta can now accept and offer quests as Alpha can. In return, Alpha can now offer contracts to a hero squad. The box was slightly glitched, and Delta had a feeling that this was never supposed to be a thing. Established programs include Alpha and Gamma. A second program lists Delta and Beta. However, due to events, the system has created a new program for the unlikely pairing of Alpha and Delta. The system box glitched once more and then vanished. "Befriend squishy child," Rudy mused, thinking on how to do it aloud. Delta left him to it. Valen rushed back to his village, jumping over the large boulders onto the beach until sand turned to grass, and he ran uphill towards a towering bleached skeleton wrapped around a mountain spire. The great kerbob was a monstrous sea worm that grew so large that it could stretch from ocean floor to the tallest mountain. Supposedly, one man had devoured it all in a single night. Valen both loved the story and feared it. Its ribcage acted as a natural column that protected the village of Pictra, nestled within. And as he rushed in, people began shouting that he had returned, and his father emerged from the central house, hobbling on a crooked branch as he clutched Valen close. "The seas began swimming with Jaws. I feared the worst," his father said, speaking into the top of Valen's head as they embraced.
"Pa, I discovered something to help save us and make the island healthy again,"
Valen cried out, and he knew that he had their attention. Valen was not a child to make idle boasts. He was considered a quiet child. "What's that, my boy?" his father asked, and Valen held out a fang of the Stormcaller Seahagen. The Salt Dungeon had given it to Valen as a show of power. He swore he heard it call him Squishy, but it let him go. None of the monsters attacked him on the way out. "Blood, you're covered in salt. Don't you know how expensive pure salt is to import? This is terrible," a nearby lady said as she dusted Valen off with a deep sigh. Valen grinned and emptied out his pockets, raining the purest of salt. It took barely any of Valen's mana to make it stable after that amazing kobold taught him how to make it his own. Inside his body, his seed shifted from a little bit, glowing blue and gaining a serene quality. Only a single, small blue spot had appeared, but it was enough to give off an impression of a smiling woman and of changes to come. "Nu, I'm home," Delta said as she materialized in the core room. Nu was in the map room, staring intently down at different locations. "What you doing?" Delta asked as she appeared at his side. "Deciding if I want to conquer the left or the right hand first," he marveled, almost entirely humanoid with a young man's face. His hair still dark blue, along with what appeared to be an afternoon shadow at his face. Nu was maturing. "I want to own it all," he said, spreading over the table with a sigh. In his own way. "Did Sis give you a chance to teach Dungeon 2? Did she give you the same speech as me?" Delta asked, suspicious. Letting you near a newborn dungeon was asking for it to be burned into the burning heap of slag or murder blender. "Yes, she did in fact. I'm going to choose my first dark minion now," Nu announced with a smug tone. He wiggled his finger until he landed on the most southern island of the Crown Chain. The island furthest from Foodie. "I can only help those that need to be dangerous to have to defend themselves from cannibal tribes, insane wizards or... door-to-door salesmen," Nu explained casually. "What's on that island?" Delta asked, worried since Foodie was so near. "Insane cannibal wizard fish people that deem being eaten by them as an honor," Nu said dryly. Delta stared at him blankly. "Yeah, big scaly massive teeth, red mouth, hiss a lot and tend to throw water about while praising their queen," Delta asked after a moment. "That's the Seahagens, yes. Now, I don't expect you to approve, but I may have to hurt them to prove a point," Nu said with a sniff. Delta chuckled nervously. I have it on good authority that they may be weak to crushing force, if that helps," she said, voice strained with the effort not to gulp. How much force?" Nu asked, looking like he was taking notes. I don't know. Jeb, how much do you weigh?" she hollered down the tunnel. "1 whole Jeb," he yelled back. "1 Jeb's worth of force," she reported, and Nu looked at her for a moment. "Whatever it is, I don't want to know. I'm off to show you how being a dungeon really is. Be careful, Delta. Your place as hardest dungeon is now at risk of being surpassed by my minions of destruction," Nu announced, glowing blue in excitement. "Have fun," Delta began to wave cheerfully. "You ruin everything," Nu grumbled and vanished. Once New was gone, Delta went through her gains from her field trip. She didn't want to make New ask too many questions. If he found out Delta was willing to be a tough cookie when needed, he would make her be a tough on everyone. You have gained pure salt. All of Farah's and Jeb's cooking has improved. You've gained Sea Hagen giblets and aluminium scraps. New monsters unlocked for the 4th floor, rust devils. You've gained the Stormcaller rod, a new option for Divina and 4th floor. Foodie has been added to the new network. Once your dungeons have developed into a special room, communications and trading can be undertaken. Only cores that have accepted you or New as a friend can join the network. Delta felt both tired and alive. This felt just like being a person again. Going out for hours on end, doing good deeds, coming home to her many wonderful friends and monstrous eldritch creatures. Just like how it used to be. Well, sometimes there had to be pop quizzes, so good deeds was stretching it. She felt her entrance open, and fair play poured in, looking more determined than ever. She spotted a lot more badges with 2 fingers instead of 1. In the last group, the 3-fingered ranked man entered as well. Behind them were 2 odd people out, a teen with a horribly angled nose and a hyperventilating woman with a slightly bugged-out eyeball. The numbers didn't advance down the hall, but carefully guarded the woman as if she were more important than the others around her.
Look!
Welcome mat. But it's all squint, the woman told the boy as she fixed the welcome mat.
You'll be all right in here?
The boy asked, and Delta moved closer because the woman.
Oh, I'll be okay. I have this mana charm that'll stop me from getting too sick if we explore.
She waved at the concern. Someone or something had utterly melted a monstrous seed inside the woman to slag. Ashen remains the seed showed Delta, even now, that the whole thing was about to hatch. It was a lot like Maharia, more like a parasite than a seed. But whatever life had been in it had been burned from the inside out. But to do that and not also kill the woman was impressive. Terrifying, but impressive.
Lim, look, this is a beautiful offering table, sturdy wood, simple bowls, and look, it's talking to us with signs. Quick, I have a silver coin that covers us both. The woman chattered as the men and women in the armor all shot her either amused looks or disgusted ones. What's in there?
The boy Lim asked, and the woman gasped.
A memorial room. Oh, I need to make sketches. I need to examine everything, she told the boy.
Delta liked her. She just wasn't sure about the other captain guy, the one gripping the hilt of his sword so tightly where the creaking of metal could be heard. That one would need to be watched. New hadn't gotten a squad of monsters. It wasn't really needed for his job. His task was to make dungeon stand on its own 2 feet as quickly as possible. Using monsters from Delta's dungeon would only make it reliant on New. But he was also allowed to bring a vizier of sort, a voice that he could bounce ideas off of. It seems we have arrived, Doctor of the Gargoyles announced as his long beak turned this way and that, his dark clothes rustling despite the fact that he was as physical as a ghost. Of all the creatures in the dungeon that weren't 3 to 5 inches tall, Doctor had the closest mindset to New. Perhaps it was because he made the gargoyle that they were more in line with how New thought. The dungeon did not look too impressive at first glance. New was just outside the entrance. He looked up and shuddered at the bright blue sky and the sun. So open, so bold. Ugh, disgusting. New hurried back into the cramped dark space to feel better. The dungeon entrance was an overgrown stone archway covered in vines. The thick, spreading greenery occasionally had white blossoms on the tips. It was inside these caves of sorts, with a single shaft of sunlight illuminated the space to reveal a lush meadow just before the entrance. Needs more skeletons and a warning signs, New reported, and Doctor wrote that down on a parchment with an extravagant black-feathered quill. Once inside, the first monster tried to surprise tackle New with its head, only to fly off his material body. New stared down at what he had to work with. It was a fox, a pale green fox with swooping leaves for a tail and flowers on its head. "Look, Sir New, it is a quadrupedal sentient salad dish," Doctor remarked happily. He was sketching as he was talking, and New had to admit that the artwork was detailed. "It's a salad fox," New grunted as he examined it for anything worthwhile. It bared its teeth and tried to nip at his neck. Disappointed, New stood up and walked through the dangling vine, only for it to try and snap around his neck and hoist him to the ceiling. "Yes, this is more how I like it," New grinned, as he counted 3 of these strangler vines in one hallway.
Are you a spirit? Asked the quiet voice. Judging by the use of mana, New was speaking with the dungeon core. It's an intruder. We should bite, growl, howl, the same voice said, talking to itself with a deeper tone. New was intrigued. He teleported to the core room. Delta's mana cut through any defenses like a knife through butter, and New was only too happy to use it for himself. The core room was nearly 19 floors down. New had been envious, but a single glance told him how light on content they were. Delta's floors were expansions. This dungeon's floors were patches. The core room was a natural cave with floating waterfall and lush meadows. Near the bank, the core, a deep emerald one, was embedded deep into a skull of some creature. The skeleton had 4 legs and a long tail, but age and materials taken by the core had rendered it mostly impossible to guess what it had been. It's powerful, the core mused. We die fighting, we die proud, she hissed at herself, a feminine voice. My name is New, and I'm from the dungeon across the sea, he said, making sure he sounded confident and at ease. We are Trinity. You'll address us as Trinity. Intruder New, I, Trinity. Now that New was close, he could hear the 3 voices clearly. They weren't separate dungeon calls or split, but if he gazed closely, in the creature's mouth, it made sense now. Your first material was compounded. The carnivore was eating a herbivore who was digesting flora. You are the cycle of life, New said, and the core was quiet for a moment. We did. I shall talk to you. The others are less inclined. I am the Trinity formed from the herbivore. I'm softer, the listener, the survivor. The soft voice was simple. You can be called Herb. I'm not using Trinity for all 3 of you. There isn't enough black leather and philosophy rants for it, New said, and the core was quiet again. I do not understand, Herb admitted. Stick with me, and you'll learn the important lessons, New said, and leaned in close. There is no understanding, he said. There is no understanding, he said, releasing all his trauma and joy of being a partner of Delta. What do you want? Herb wisely chose to move on in the conversation. I'm here to help you be a better dungeon. Turn your pitfalls into spike holes, your blow darts into sword launchers, your level 4 goblins into 60 orcs, who pays for the battle pass like a whale he is, New hissed, glowing blue. What is a whale? Does it bleed a lot? The deeper voice said huskily, the carnival voice. It's a whale, so yes, your name is now Carnage, New said simply. I accept this title of death, Carnage purred. He comes for me next. It'll mean me, the skittish voice hissed. This had to be Flora. It had no real actual thoughts going on other than immediate stimulation. If Delta were here, she'd call you, Florida or some such, New decided. Rip and tear into juicy soil. Take fishes' heads. Bloom beautifully, Florida cried. In the kingdom of Florida, Carnage and Herb ruled. The Trinity sensed something when New mentioned Delta, a tinge of respect, fear, and more. This New must be preyed upon by Delta. This Delta was the superior life form. They wanted to see this Delta now. All 3 agreed. Delta flushed and blushed at Yatina. The glass-eyed woman gushed over her memorial room with big words Delta couldn't repeat accurately. The extended vault architecture is very reminiscent of the fantastic Third Varulan era, where the artist Avelio created similar styles inside dance halls. His work crops up in dungeons sometimes because a lot of his work was subsumed in a great geoshake of the 5th era. Lim, you see this brick? It had to be made by a dungeon. Its geometry is sublime, she went on and on. Delta had to excuse herself to put a finger on her shirt collar and breathe quickly as she tried to induce cool airs downwards. Too many nice words. Delta was overloading. Where was New when she needed her ego popped? This clover fox has upgrades for a poisonous bite, New said, trying not to wave his arms. Next floor is only 20 mana away, Herb said simply. It costs 10 mana, New said, strangling a scream. The core glowed. We, the Trinity, have voted. 2 against the bite and 1 for, the core said simply, and New led them. New didn't know how long he had before the Sea-Hagen returned to attack the Trinity core once more, but he knew it wasn't a long time. Since I can crush you with sheer mana alone, I overrule the democracy and install a tyranny. Nu said, voice deadly quiet. The core was still as stone until it blinked once. We vote as a union against that. You can't unionize against me, Nu complained, turning to Doctor, who was conversing with a shapely boulder. Can they? He asked the smart gargoyle. Indeed they can. Mistress Delta would even support their developing democracy, he reminded Nu. No, what Delta would do is infect them until she had them all in her pocket or eating out of her hands? Can I be included? Nu said innocently. As a voter, I mean, since I'm here to help. He pointed out. The Trinity hesitated. We see no harm. The cycle includes all, Herb said finally. I vote for Poisonous Fangs for the Clover Fox, he said instantly, a window appearing, and he clicked the emerald green yes. 2 for, 2 against. This is a draw, Herb stuttered. Oh my, I didn't expect that, Nu cried and quickly pointed to Doctor. Make him vote, he said quickly as a solution. The Doctor stared at Nu with a heavy sigh. He clicked yes when the screen came up, the edges glitchy in panic. Order is restored. The purchase has been done and ended, Herb announced. Nu smiled at himself. Oh no, little friends. The purchases are just beginning, he promised, and opened the menu for the entire dungeon. End of chapter. I would like to thank the T5 peeps, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Bushmaster 177, Leslie 517, Red Panda 121, Cold War Boomervathan, Light Jock, Dragzoon WRE, Lord Azrakul, Severin Cerberus, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.